What happens when a single father discovers his billionaire boss is about to lose everything, and the evidence to save her is hidden in plain sight? My name is Adrian Cole, and a week ago my life was simple. I worked as an operations manager in a large tech company, raised my 7-year-old daughter Maya, and tried to keep everything in my world running smoothly. I never imagined that one careless joke would place me at the center of the biggest corporate conspiracy our company had ever seen. And it all started with a cup of terrible office coffee. The fluorescent lights on the 8th-floor hallway buzzed quietly, the kind of sound you only notice after midnight when the office becomes almost silent. It was 11:47 p.m. on a Thursday. I stood by the coffee machine watching dark liquid drip slowly into a paper cup. The building that normally held hundreds of employees felt like an empty cathedral of cubicles and glass walls. During the day, our tech company was full of noise, phones ringing, meetings running late, people rushing from department to department with laptops and coffee. But at this hour, the entire place felt different, quiet, still, almost eerie. I had been working late for weeks. The quarterly operations review was coming, and as the operations manager I had to track every workflow, approval chain, and efficiency report across 6 departments. Nobody celebrates operations managers. Nobody puts them on magazine covers, but if the systems fail, everything fails. I didn't mind the work, though. The overtime helped cover my daughter Maya's school expenses, and working late meant I could leave early sometimes to pick her up from school. Maya was 7 years old. She was the center of my entire world. Every long night, every sacrifice, every stressful report was for her. I took a sip of the coffee and instantly regretted it. It tasted burnt and bitter like office coffee always does after sitting for hours. I turned toward my desk. Then I heard something. A sound. Soft. Almost like someone sighing. I froze. The 8th floor should have been completely empty. Security had already done their rounds and the cleaning crew wouldn't arrive until after 1 in the morning. For a moment I wondered if I imagined it. Then I heard it again. A quiet breath, human. My first instinct was concern. Someone might need help. My second instinct came a second later, caution. Because walking toward strange sounds in an empty building after midnight is not always a good idea. But ignoring someone who might be in trouble felt worse. So I followed the sound. The hallway led toward the executive offices. Huge wooden doors with polished brass nameplates lined the walls. Vice presidents, senior directors, and at the very end of the hallway was something I never expected to see. Victoria Langford, the CEO of our entire company. She wasn't standing. She wasn't pacing or talking on the phone like powerful executives usually do. She was sitting on the floor, cross-legged. Her back leaned against the wall near the copy room. Her phone rested loosely in her hand and her expensive high heels sat on the carpet beside her. For a moment I genuinely wondered if I was hallucinating. Victoria Langford didn't sit on office floors. She commanded boardrooms. Her face appeared on business magazines. She had built our company from a tiny startup into a billion-dollar tech empire. And yet there she was, looking tired, human, almost vulnerable. "Miss Langford," I said quietly. She looked up quickly, surprised. For a second I saw something real in her expression. Exhaustion, maybe frustration. Then her professional mask returned. "Adrian," she said, sounding slightly surprised she remembered my name. "Working late." "Quarterly review prep," I replied awkwardly. "Are you okay?" "What?" She let out a short laugh that didn't contain much humor. "Define okay." I didn't know how to answer that. In 3 years working here, I had spoken to her maybe 10 times. Brief elevator conversations, short greetings during company events. People like her existed in a completely different world. Private jets, investor meetings, charity galas. Meanwhile, I spent my days tracking spreadsheets and approval chains. I was about to excuse myself when she spoke again. "My penthouse is being renovated," she said while staring at her phone. 6 weeks of drilling and construction. So I rented a temporary place across town. She paused. "Very expensive, very nice." "Very flooded." I blinked. "Flooded." "Pipe burst tonight," she said flatly. 3 floors underwater. Building management told me I need to move out by tomorrow morning. She finally looked up at me. I have board meetings tomorrow, investor calls, a product launch next week, and nowhere to stay. The situation felt strangely surreal. This woman could probably buy entire apartment buildings, yet she was sitting on an office floor because of a housing problem. Before my brain had time to think, the words came out of my mouth. You could always move in with me. Silence. The moment the sentence left my mouth, I wanted to grab it and shove it back inside. I meant it as a joke, a ridiculous comment to lighten the absurd situation. A billionaire CEO living in my small apartment with my 7-year-old daughter. Completely impossible. Victoria stared at me. Then she laughed. A real laugh this time, warm, genuine. That's very kind of you, Adrian. My face felt hot. I was joking, I said quickly. I know, she replied with a small smile. Then she added something unexpected. But thank you. It's been a long time since someone offered something without expecting anything in return. The hallway suddenly felt quiet again, fragile somehow. Then Victoria stood up smoothly and slipped her heels back on. The transformation happened instantly. The tired woman sitting on the floor disappeared. The CEO returned. I should go, she said. I'll figure something out. Good night, Miss Langford. Victoria, she corrected. If we're sharing office space at midnight, you might as well call me Victoria. Good night, Victoria. She walked past me toward the elevators, her heels clicking confidently across the tile floor. I watched her disappear and shook my head. Then I went back to my desk. But I couldn't focus on the spreadsheets anymore, because the image of Victoria Langford sitting on that office floor kept replaying in my mind. Powerful, successful, and completely alone. I got home around 1:30 a.m. Our apartment building wasn't fancy, just an old 3-story complex that had seen better years. But it was home. Mrs. Chen, my elderly neighbor who watched Maya when I worked late, was sleeping on the couch. She went to bed at 9, Mrs. Chen whispered when I walked in. Finished her homework. Good girl. I thanked her and paid her before checking Maya's room. She was curled under the blanket, holding the stuffed rabbit she had owned since she was 3. I stood there watching her for a moment. This was my world, small, simple, but real. I had no idea that in less than 12 hours my quiet life and Victoria Langford's powerful world were about to collide in ways neither of us could have imagined. Friday morning started like every other. Breakfast at 6:30, teeth brushing at 6:50, backpack check at 7:05, out the door by 7:15. I'm picking you up early today, I reminded Maya as we walked to the car. We're getting ice cream. Her eyes lit up. Chocolate chip. Any flavor you want. After dropping her off at school, I drove to the office. Traffic was heavy like always. I mentally prepared for meetings and emails and reports. What I didn't expect was to see Victoria Langford waiting at my desk. She stood beside my cubicle wearing a navy business suit that probably cost more than my car. Several employees nearby were pretending not to stare. They were failing. Good morning, Adrian, she said. Good morning, I replied carefully. Is everything okay? Can we talk somewhere private? My stomach tightened. When the CEO asked for a private conversation, it usually meant one of two things, promotion or termination, and I was pretty sure I wasn't getting promoted. We walked to a small conference room on the 9th floor. Victoria closed the door and turned toward me. I need to ask you something, she said, and I need you to answer honestly. Of course. She took a breath. Last night when you offered to let me move in with you, were you serious? The room suddenly felt very quiet. I was joking, I admitted. I know, she said, but hypothetically. Would you actually let me stay there? I stared at her. You want to stay at my apartment? Yes. My situation is more complicated than I told you last night. My ex-husband has filed a legal claim on my penthouse. He's frozen access to it. and every hotel in the city is full because of a technology conference. She looked directly at me. I need somewhere quiet, somewhere normal, somewhere nobody would think to look for me. Then she added softly, like your apartment. I thought about my place, 2 bedrooms, one for me, one for Maya, and a small spare room that mostly held a desk. Then I thought about Maya, and the billionaire CEO asking to stay in our tiny home. The whole situation was insane, and yet I heard myself say it anyway. Okay. Victoria blinked. Okay. You can stay, I said slowly, but I have a daughter. She's 7. She'll have a lot of questions. Victoria nodded. I understand. And Adrian. Thank you. I had no idea at that moment that letting Victoria Langford move into my apartment would pull me into a conspiracy powerful enough to destroy a billion-dollar company. But that storm was already coming, and in 48 hours, I would be the only person standing between her and total ruin. The moment Victoria asked if she could really stay in my apartment, my life stopped feeling normal. I kept thinking about the strange reality of it while we walked back to the elevators. The CEO of a billion-dollar company was about to move into a small 2-bedroom apartment with a single dad and a 7-year-old girl. Nothing about that made sense, but somehow it was happening. We worked out the details quickly. Victoria would arrive that evening after work with one suitcase. She insisted she would stay out of our way and keep things simple. I nodded, still trying to process the situation. Then she shook my hand like we had just completed a business deal. Thank you again, Adrian. And just like that, she walked away. I sat at my desk staring at my computer screen for several minutes before I realized I had no idea how to explain any of this to Maya. That afternoon, I picked Maya up from school like usual. She ran toward the car with her backpack bouncing behind her. Daddy, guess what? We learned about dinosaurs today. That sounds exciting, I said, smiling, but my mind was somewhere else. I needed to tell her something strange, something very strange. We stopped for ice cream like I promised and sat in a booth near the window. Maya happily attacked her chocolate chip cone while I tried to find the right words. So kiddo, I said carefully, we're going to have a guest staying with us for a few days. Maya looked up immediately. Who? My boss. Her eyes grew wide. The lady from your work website. Yeah, I said, that one. What's her name again? Victoria. Maya thought about this for a moment. Is she nice? I think so. Can I show her my drawings? I laughed. You can probably show her your drawings. Maya nodded happily like everything made perfect sense. Kids have a simple way of accepting things adults overthink. To her, a guest was just a guest, even if that guest happened to run an international technology company. When we got home, I cleaned the apartment like my life depended on it. I changed the sheets in the spare room, moved my desk into the living room, scrubbed the kitchen counters twice. I even vacuumed the hallway outside the apartment door. At exactly 7 o'clock, there was a knock. I opened the door. Victoria stood there wearing jeans and a gray sweater instead of her usual business clothes. Her hair was tied back and she pulled a small suitcase behind her. Without the armor of her corporate image, she looked younger, almost nervous. Hi, she said. Hi, I replied. Come in. She stepped inside slowly, looking around the small living room. The furniture was old but clean. The television had probably survived 2 decades. The kitchen curtains were bright yellow, something my late wife had chosen years ago. It's lovely, Victoria said. I raised an eyebrow. You don't have to pretend. I'm not pretending, she replied. It's warm. Before I could answer, Maya appeared from the hallway. She walked slowly toward Victoria like she was meeting a celebrity. Hi, Maya said quietly. Victoria crouched down so they were eye level. You must be Maya. Yes. I've heard a lot about you. Maya's eyes widened. You have? Your dad says you're very smart. Maya beamed. Do you want to see my drawings? Victoria glanced at me. I nodded. I would love to see them, she told Maya. Within seconds, Maya dragged her to the refrigerator and began explaining every drawing attached to it. Cats, rainbows, a horse that looked more like a long dog. Victoria listened carefully to each explanation like it was the most important art gallery in the world. Watching them together felt surreal. My daughter was proudly presenting refrigerator art to one of the most powerful women in the tech industry. The evening settled into something unexpectedly normal. Victoria helped me make grilled cheese sandwiches for dinner. She sat with Maya while she finished a puzzle. Later, she even volunteered to read Maya's bedtime story. I stood in the doorway while Victoria read from a children's book, giving each character a different voice. Maya watched her with complete fascination. When the story ended and the lights went out, Maya whispered something as I tucked her in. I like her. I smiled, me too. Weekend passed surprisingly easily. Victoria kept her promise not to disturb our routine, but somehow she slowly became part of it. On Saturday morning, she helped Maya make pancakes. On Sunday, she came with us to the park. She even insisted on buying groceries and cooked dinner that evening. It was strange, comfortable, domestic in a way I hadn't expected, but I kept reminding myself it was temporary. Soon she would return to her penthouse, her world, and we would return to ours. Or at least that was the plan. What neither of us knew was that something far more dangerous was already unfolding inside the company, and it had nothing to do with housing problems. Monday morning arrived like every other workday. Victoria left the apartment early. I dropped Maya off at school and headed to the office. The building felt busy again after the quiet weekend. People rushed through hallways carrying laptops and coffee. Everything looked normal, but normal didn't last long. At 10:30, my phone buzzed with a message from Victoria. Coffee at 11, 8th floor. When I reached the coffee machine, she was already there. Rough morning, I asked. 5 meetings before noon, she said. Board meeting today too. She took a sip of coffee and grimaced. This is terrible. Office coffee, I replied. It's always terrible. We stood there in comfortable silence. Then she looked at me. Thank you again for letting me stay. It's been easier than I expected. Maya adores you, I said. She asked if you could stay forever. Victoria smiled softly. She's a remarkable kid. Then her phone buzzed. Board meeting, she sighed. Wish me luck. Good luck. She walked away, and I had no idea the meeting she was heading into had been carefully designed to destroy her. On the 12th floor, Senior Executive Marcus Blackwood sat in his office watching the board members gather. Marcus had spent years working under Victoria, years watching her receive the credit, years watching her face appear in magazines while his name remained invisible. But today that would change. The presentation began. Victoria confidently reported that Project Titan was ahead of schedule and under budget. The board members nodded approvingly. Then Marcus spoke. Victoria, he said calmly, I'm afraid the financial data tells a different story. He displayed a new set of slides. Numbers filled the screen, cost overruns, security issues, missed deadlines. The room slowly shifted. Board members who had been smiling now looked concerned. Victoria stared at the screen. These numbers are wrong. They come directly from the finance department, Marcus replied smoothly. He handed printed reports to the board. This shows the actual costs. Victoria flipped through the pages. Her stomach tightened. She had never seen these numbers before. The meeting continued for another hour. Marcus calmly presented more evidence, more documents, more supposed mistakes. By the end of the meeting, the board members looked uneasy. No official decision was made, but the damage had been done. Victoria walked out of the boardroom with her head high. Inside, she felt something colder than fear. Someone had set her up. That evening, she returned to the apartment long after Maya had gone to bed. She looked exhausted. Bad day? I asked. She sank onto the couch. Someone is trying to destroy everything I built. The words hung heavy in the room. What do you mean? The board thinks I mismanaged Project Titan. They have documents showing massive mistakes. But I didn't make those mistakes. You think someone changed the data? I asked. I know they did. She looked at me. And I have no idea how to prove it. My mind started racing. My job involved tracking internal systems, approval chains, workflow logs, file histories. If someone had manipulated the data, there had to be traces somewhere. Victoria, I said slowly, what if I could help? She looked surprised. How? I work with internal systems every day. If someone altered documents, there might be digital records they forgot to erase. She studied my face. You'd risk getting involved in corporate politics. You're sleeping in my spare room, I replied with a small smile. I think we're past avoiding each other's problems. For the first time that night, she looked hopeful. Okay, she said quietly, let's find the truth. 2 hours later, I sat at the kitchen table, surrounded by documents. Emails, financial reports, project timelines. Victoria had forwarded everything the board showed her. At first, the data looked convincing, but the longer I studied it, the more inconsistencies I noticed. Version numbers didn't match timestamps. Approval signatures came from managers who weren't even in those departments. Files had been modified recently but backdated to appear older. Someone had manipulated the system carefully, but they weren't perfect. By midnight, I had flagged 37 suspicious changes. It wasn't proof yet, but it was enough to confirm one thing. Victoria was telling the truth. Someone inside the company was sabotaging her. And if I was right, the person behind it was very powerful. The next morning, I went to the office earlier than usual. Something felt wrong in the building. People whispered in small groups. Rumors had started spreading about the board meeting. While I reviewed system logs, my phone rang. It was Tom Chen from IT security. Adrian, can you come to my office? When I reached the server room, Tom showed me something on his monitor. Someone has been accessing archived files from Project Titan, he said, almost every night for 2 weeks, using an admin account that should have been deactivated years ago. My stomach tightened. Can you trace it? Tom highlighted the location. The access point comes from the 12th floor. Executive offices. Then he zoomed in further. The exact computer, the exact office, Marcus Blackwood's office. I stared at the screen. The same man who had presented evidence against Victoria at the board meeting. The same man pushing for her removal. Tom, I said quietly, I think Marcus is framing her. Tom leaned back slowly. Then we're about to uncover something big. And suddenly the situation was no longer just a housing favor or a workplace disagreement. It was something far bigger, a conspiracy that could destroy careers, maybe even the entire company. And somehow, I had just stepped right into the middle of it. When Tom showed me the system logs pointing to Marcus Blackwood's office, my stomach tightened. Marcus wasn't just another executive. He was Victoria's second in command, one of the most powerful men in the company. If he was really behind the fake reports, then this wasn't a simple misunderstanding. It was a calculated attack. Can you prove it? I asked Tom quietly. Tom leaned closer to the monitor. I can track file changes and access logs, he said, but whoever did this knew how to hide their steps. So it might take time. Time was the one thing we didn't have, because a few minutes later my phone buzzed with a message from Victoria. Emergency board meeting Thursday. They're considering removing me from Project Titan. I showed the message to Tom. He whistled softly. They're moving fast. If Marcus convinces the board before we find proof, it's over. I nodded, which meant we had to find the truth before Thursday. That night when I returned home, Victoria was already at the apartment sitting at the kitchen table. My laptop was open in front of her. Stacks of printed reports surrounded her. She looked up the moment I walked in. You found something, didn't you? I sat down across from her. Marcus Blackwood has been accessing Project Titan files late at night. Her face hardened. I knew it. But we still need solid evidence, I said. Access logs alone won't prove he changed the files. Victoria leaned back in her chair. Then we catch him doing it. How? She looked at me carefully. You understand the internal systems better than anyone. If Marcus is manipulating documents, he has to access them again, which means sooner or later he'll leave a trail. Her voice softened slightly. Adrian, I trust you. Those 3 words felt heavier than any promotion, because now I wasn't just helping a coworker. I was helping someone who was about to lose everything. Over the next 2 days, my life turned into a strange double reality. During the day, I acted like nothing was happening, answering emails, attending meetings, running reports. But behind the scenes, Tom and I were watching the system like detectives, tracking access logs, checking file histories, studying every small detail. And every night Marcus accessed the files again. Always late, always careful, but each time he made tiny mistakes. Small changes that didn't match the official version history. Slowly, we started building a timeline, and the pattern became clear. Marcus wasn't just sabotaging Project Titan. He was rewriting history, making it look like Victoria ignored warnings, like she approved risky decisions, like she caused millions of dollars in losses. It was brilliant, cruel, and almost impossible to detect unless someone knew exactly where to look. Wednesday night, we found the first real breakthrough. Tom burst into the server room holding a tablet. Adrian, look at this. He pulled up a screen showing email metadata. Marcus has been sending encrypted messages outside the company. To who? Tom zoomed in. The name appeared on the screen. Richard Chen, Victoria's ex-husband's lawyer. My heart skipped. Are you serious? Tom nodded slowly. Marcus and your CEO's ex-husband are working together. That meant the apartment problem, the lawsuit, the board meeting, everything had been planned. They were attacking Victoria from both sides, personally and professionally. I leaned back in my chair. This isn't just about stealing her position. It's about destroying her completely. Tom nodded. And if Marcus becomes CEO afterward, he wins everything. When I got home that night, Victoria was pacing the living room. Maya was already asleep. What did you find? She asked immediately. I explained everything. The hidden emails, the connection to her ex-husband's lawyer, the manipulated documents. Victoria stood silent for several seconds. Then she whispered something I didn't expect. I trusted him. Marcus helped build this company with me. He was there in the early years. Her voice cracked slightly. I never imagined he would do something like this. I didn't know what to say. Betrayal like that cuts deeper than any financial loss. Finally, she looked up again. What do? We gather enough proof to show the board, I said, and we do it before Thursday morning. Thursday arrived faster than I expected. Victoria announced she was ordering a full audit of Project Titan. It was a bluff, but it was meant to scare Marcus, and it worked. By noon, Tom's messages started flooding my phone. He's panicking. Marcus is editing files again, deleting records, trying to clean up evidence. Tom captured everything: screenshots, logs, version histories, every digital fingerprint Marcus left behind. Then something unexpected happened. At 1:15 p.m. my desk phone rang. Adrian, the voice said, this is Marcus Blackwood's office. He'd like to see you immediately. My heart started pounding. Why would Marcus want to see me? Did he know I was investigating him? I texted Tom quickly. If I'm not back in 30 minutes, come find me. Then I took the elevator to the 12th floor. Marcus's office looked exactly how you'd imagine. Huge windows, expensive furniture, a desk the size of my kitchen table. Marcus stood near the window when I entered. Adrian, he said smoothly, thank you for coming. I sat across from him. What can I do for you? Marcus folded his hands. I hear you've grown close to Victoria recently. My chest tightened. Working with her, I replied carefully. She's been staying at your apartment, Marcus continued. Temporary situation. He smiled slightly. I admire loyalty, Adrian. But sometimes loyalty can damage your career. The message was clear, he knew, or at least he suspected. Victoria's position in the company is unstable, Marcus continued. Tomorrow the board may remove her from Project Titan. And when that happens, people close to her might suffer consequences too. So what are you suggesting? I asked. I'm suggesting you think about your future. Marcus leaned forward. You're talented. Someone like you could rise quickly under the right leadership. Meaning his leadership. In that moment I understood exactly who he was, a man who believed everyone had a price. I appreciate the advice, I said calmly, but I'm comfortable where I am. Something dark flashed in his eyes. Just remember, he said quietly, careers can disappear very quickly. I stood up, so can lies. For a moment we stared at each other, then I walked out. My hands were shaking by the time I reached the elevator. That night Victoria and I sat at the kitchen table going through the final evidence. Tom had compiled over 100 pages of documentation, access logs, email connections, file histories, enough to expose Marcus completely. Victoria closed the laptop slowly. This will destroy him. He destroyed himself, I said. She looked at me for a moment. You know you risked your career for this. I know. Why? The answer came easier than I expected. Because Maya needs to grow up in a world where people stand up for what's right. Victoria smiled softly. You're a good man, Adrian Cole. Friday morning, we met the board chairman before the official meeting. His name was Donald Reeves. An old-school businessman who valued honesty above everything. We showed him the evidence, every file, every log, every message. He studied the documents carefully. Then he leaned back in his chair. If this is real, he said slowly, Marcus Blackwood is finished. It's real, Victoria replied. Donald nodded. Then we bring him in. An hour later, Marcus Blackwood walked into the boardroom. He looked confident, relaxed, completely unaware of what was waiting for him. Donald gestured toward the screen. Marcus, we've discovered something interesting. The evidence appeared one piece at a time. Access logs, modified documents, encrypted emails, security footage showing Marcus entering his office at 2 in the morning. The confidence slowly disappeared from his face. This is absurd, Marcus said. These logs could be fabricated. By our independent forensic team. Donald replied coldly. Marcus looked around the room. For the first time he realized he was trapped. You don't understand, he said suddenly. I built this company too. I deserved recognition. And you thought destroying Victoria would give you that? Donald asked. Marcus didn't answer. Security entered the room a few seconds later. As they escorted him out, Marcus looked directly at me. There was pure hatred in his eyes, but it didn't matter anymore, because the truth had finally caught up with him. When the room emptied, Victoria and I were the last ones left. She leaned against the conference table. We actually did it. I nodded. You did it. I had help. She looked at me with a warmth that hadn't been there before. What happens now? I asked. Now, she said softly, I figure out where I belong. And somehow, I had a feeling that answer might include my small apartment. When Marcus Blackwood was escorted out of the boardroom, the silence that followed felt unreal. For a few seconds nobody spoke. 12 board members sat around the massive table staring at the evidence that had just destroyed one of the most powerful executives in the company. Finally, Donald Reeves, the board chairman, cleared his throat. Well, he said slowly, it seems we owe someone an apology. Every pair of eyes in the room turned toward Victoria. Margaret Walsh, who had been one of Victoria's biggest critics, leaned forward. We should have trusted your leadership, she admitted. We let manipulated data influence our judgment. Victoria stood calmly at the end of the table. You trusted the evidence you were given, she said. The real issue is making sure this can never happen again. Donald nodded. I agree. He looked around the room. The vote on removing Victoria from Project Titan is officially canceled. Instead, we'll begin a full investigation into Marcus Blackwood's actions. The decision was unanimous. Just like that, Victoria's position was restored. But the damage Marcus caused would take months to repair. After the board members left, Victoria and I remained in the room alone. For the first time since everything started, the tension finally disappeared from her face. Then something unexpected happened. She started laughing, not politely, not professionally, real laughter. "We did it," she said. "I can't believe we actually did it." "You did it," I replied. "I just followed the data." She walked toward me slowly. "You risked your career to help me." "You didn't have to." I shrugged. It was the right thing to do. For a moment neither of us spoke. The morning sunlight poured through the boardroom windows, and suddenly the past week felt unreal. A joke about moving in together had somehow turned into exposing the biggest corporate fraud our company had ever seen. Victoria finally broke the silence. "You know I'll need to move out soon," she said. "My penthouse situation is almost resolved." Something twisted in my chest when she said that. The apartment had felt different with her there, warmer, full. Even Maya had noticed. "You don't have to rush," I said. "You're welcome to stay as long as you need." Victoria smiled. "Maya would probably riot if I left too quickly anyway." "She's gotten attached." "So have I." That afternoon I picked Maya up from school. She ran to the car like usual. "Daddy, guess what?" "What happened?" "I got second place in science class." "That's amazing." She climbed into the back seat. "Is Victoria coming to dinner tonight?" "Probably." "Good," Maya said happily. "She promised to help me build a volcano for the science fair." I laughed. "I think she's excited about that." When we got home, Victoria was already there sitting at the kitchen table working on her laptop. But the moment Maya burst through the door, she closed it immediately. "Victoria," Maya shouted, "guess what?" Within seconds, they were discussing volcanoes like it was the most important scientific project in history. I watched them from the kitchen. Something settled in my chest. Something that felt right. Over the next few weeks, life slowly returned to normal, or at least a new version of normal. Marcus Blackwood was officially charged with corporate fraud and computer crimes. The company launched major reforms to prevent anything like it from happening again. And Victoria asked me to help lead the new internal integrity department. It was a huge promotion, one that would change my career forever. But the biggest change wasn't at the office. It was at home. Victoria never rushed to leave the apartment. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. She kept her penthouse for business events, but most nights she came back to our small third-floor apartment. She helped Maya with homework, burned pancakes on Saturday mornings, and slowly became part of our life. One evening about a month later, Maya and I were at the park. She was swinging back and forth while I stood behind her. "Daddy," she said suddenly, "are you going to marry Victoria?" I almost choked. "Why would you ask that?" "Because you smile more when she's around." "Kids notice everything." "I don't know," I admitted, "but do you like having her around?" Maya stopped swinging and looked at me seriously. "I love having her around. It feels like we're a family again." Her words stayed with me the entire walk home. That night after Maya went to bed, Victoria and I sat on the couch in the quiet living room. "I need to ask you something," I said. She looked up from her laptop. "What is it?" Maya asked if we were going to get married. Victoria blinked in surprise. "Oh." She said, "Our family feels complete when you're here." Victoria didn't say anything for a moment. Then she closed the laptop slowly. "My lawyer finalized my housing situation last week," she said quietly. "I could move back to the penthouse anytime. But every time I think about leaving." She looked around the apartment. "It feels wrong." I took a breath. "Then don't leave." Victoria studied my face. "You're asking a lot, Adrian. You have a quiet life." I come with cameras, headlines, and a very complicated career. My life changed the moment you walked through that door, I said. And honestly, I like the change. Victoria smiled softly. You're brave. I'm terrified, I admitted, but I think it's worth it. She reached for my hand. I think so too. 6 months later, the company held its annual shareholder meeting. Victoria stood on stage presenting record profits and new reforms. The company had recovered completely from the scandal. Employees trusted leadership again. Investors were confident. Everything Marcus tried to destroy had been rebuilt stronger. After the meeting, several people congratulated us. Some even whispered rumors about our relationship. Victoria squeezed my hand and laughed. Apparently, the media thinks we're secretly engaged. Well, I said, they're not entirely wrong. 2 weeks earlier, I had proposed to her in the same park where Maya asked that question. Just the three of us. No cameras, no headlines, just family. That evening, we sat at the kitchen table helping Maya finish another science project. Did you know Saturn could float in a giant bathtub? She asked proudly. Victoria smiled. I didn't know that. Maya nodded seriously. I think when I grow up I'll be a scientist. Or maybe run a company like you. Or both. You can do anything you want, I told her. But what do you want most? Maya thought carefully. I think I just want to be happy. Victoria and I exchanged a quiet smile, out of the mouths of kids. Later that night, we stood by the apartment window watching the city lights. Do you remember the first night we met like this? Victoria asked. You sitting on the office floor. I laughed. I thought I was hallucinating. And then you said I could move in with you. A joke that shouldn't have mattered. But it did. Victoria leaned her head on my shoulder. One joke changed everything. Sometimes the smallest moments matter the most, I said. Outside, the city moved on like it always did. But inside our little apartment, something better had been built. Not a billion-dollar company, not power or fame, just a real family. And honestly, that was worth more than everything else combined.